Great. Let me go ahead and just share with everybody who we have on. So we are lucky enough to be joined by Sam Novotny. He is the Director of Operations from LOCO Food Distribution. And Sam is from Boulder, Colorado, and he's been with LOCO Foods for 9 years. He is part owner, and he is our COO, and he is also in charge of vendor relations. Among many other things, he handles bringing on new vendors, helping vendors grow, which includes brokering into the chain grocers. As he recently became part owner of LOCO Foods, this is what he's been focused on. He and his wife have 2 kids, Oliver and Virginia, and they enjoy the great outdoors of Colorado, including hiking, fishing, and skiing. That's great. We're also joined by 2 experts from SROUTS. We've got Michael Paige, who is the regional sourcing manager of local produce. And Michael is a Colorado native with a wife and 3 kids. I'm sure that keeps you very busy. He has worked in the produce industry for 18 years, and 13 of those years was working in operations and sales for a specialty produce wholesale company, including 3 years in food service at Cisco Denver as a produce buyer and advisor, and 2 years in retail grocery at Sprouts Farmers Market as a buyer and regional sourcing manager. He loves what he does for Sprouts Farmers Markets, and mostly it's to help connect consumers with local growers and their fresh produce. He loves the state of Colorado, and he gets a lot of joy from helping shoppers find the freshest fruits and vegetables possible. We're also joined by Thomas Dunnum, and he is the senior category manager of local produce for Colorado, Utah, and New Mexico. And he is a Southern California native, but he's been here in Colorado for 13 years and was lucky enough to marry a Colorado native. Good job, Thomas. And they have 2 boys, Mason and Everett. He has worked in the produce industry for 17 years, all with Sprouts, and he has been in and around produce since he was a child, where he worked with his father, who was a produce merchandiser. He has held various roles in produce, from a stocking clerk, produce manager, regional trainer, regional merchandise operations specialist, buyer, and category manager. Wonderful. We're also joined by Tadd Overstreet. Tadd is the owner of Stylist and Crate Coffee, but he's also an accomplished executive with more than 3 decades of experience in the grocery, CPG, and hospitality industries. He is a proven change agent and brand builder based upon strategic vision, operational excellence, and passion for listening to the customer. When he was in high school, he bagged groceries, and that led to a 28-year retail grocery career. Retail operations and management roles were the foundation that enabled his expertise in purchasing and category management. He has held positions in retail store management, procurement, category management with King Soopers, where his core belief of listening to the customer was established and further enhanced with the evolution of data analytics and shopper behavior. Tadd joined Whole Foods in 2007 as their first grocery director when they merged with Wild Oats Market, creating the new Rocky Mountain region. This role enabled Tadd to collaborate closely with entrepreneurs and to help them follow their dreams of creating their new products and brands for retail environment. His passion for building brands inspired him to join Presence Marketing, the premier food broker in the natural and organic channel, as the regional vice president, where he oversaw 2 different regions and leading their expansion to a national sales team. In 2019, his passion for helping others follow their dreams inspired him to become an entrepreneur himself, and he founded the Covers Corporation, a hospitality company focused on niche markets. Covers is currently developing their first packaged product launch, and as an industry expert, he continues to consult with other entrepreneurs and serves on multiple boards in various roles. Well, thank you again. This is going to be fantastic. Just a couple things. We'll keep our microphones muted if we're not speaking. This just helps eliminate some background noise. And we welcome questions. Please, you raise your hand or type it in the chat, and we'll make sure we get those addressed. And at the end, we'll ask for questions again after each speaker. And if you do come up with any questions after the webinar, just let me know. That's my email address, and we'll make sure we get these experts to answer your questions. So thank you again for joining. And I'd like to get started with Sam from LOCO Food Distribution.
Okay, thanks for having me here, Barb, and yeah, looking forward to hearing from everybody here. So I think I sent you some slides. Do you have those, or I just kind of wanted to give a little bit of an overview of what we do at Loco. I think our first slide kind of goes over what we're about, but we were started about 12 years ago. Elizabeth, the founder and current CEO, started Loco with her minivan. She really was, her vision was to really connect local food to the Colorado mainstream in the Front Range. And so initially the idea was to work with a lot of produce and a lot of smaller farms and meat producers. But we've sort of since evolved from that to be more of a CPG retail distributor. We do a lot of shelf-stable stuff to Sprouts, Whole Foods, Safeway, natural grocers. We do some refrigerated and some frozen too. But yeah, we've really kind of evolved to find a niche in the CPG area. You can see our delivery area is from, we do a little bit into Wyoming, but mostly focused on the Front Range, up into Estes, Boulder, and all the way down to Colorado Springs. I mentioned those 4 major grocery chains, but we also work with any other, food buyer in between. So independent grocery stores, liquor stores, institutions, which we refer to as hospitals, hotels, universities, cafeterias, places like that. Anyone kind of in between, coffee shops too. Let's see. So yeah, that's a. You can go to the next slide there. So for new brands, a lot of the advice that we always give new brands or a food producer that's looking to get the packaging together and get ready for retail is we always want them to be aware of their pricing. And as you're growing your customer base and doing self-deliveries or pricing your products at farmers markets, we always encourage having a really solid structure for your pricing and making sure that you're not just throwing cases in the trunk of your car and delivering it to the small grocery store down the street and not paying yourself for that. Because at some point when you want to scale up and get into a distributor and just take the next steps, it's going to need to be in there. And it's much easier when you transfer over to a distributor that there's not a price change, or a large price change anyway when that happens, because that can be a little off-putting for current customers that are already loyal to you, but then also just makes it more complicated moving forward with presenting yourself to retailers. And then we always just like to mention that retailers are generally going to use a 40% margin on top of that too. So just good things to keep in mind as you're getting yourself set up there. Next slide there. So we have on our website, and I can share it with anybody too. We have like a little flow chart to see if you're ready for distribution through us. And this is, so I kind of had to split it up into 2 different slides here, but we do focus mainly on locally produced and processed food. So as you come down here, if you're looking for distribution, and then down to the left, if you're grown and or processed within 400 miles of Fort Collins, keep going. Yes, we can go next slide. And then part of our onboarding process for new vendors is we like to see a certain amount of velocity that you're already doing yourself. We always like to have brands that have run out of bandwidth to distribute their own product anymore. And at that point is when we'd step in and help out with the distribution. So that's kind of what these next questions are looking for, is are you ready with some velocity that would make sense for us to take you on. And so then we can pop down here to the lower right, and if it's still a yes, then we're probably ready to have the next conversation. And again, I can share this link to this on our website, and all of our policies and procedures are linked there too, and kind of all our onboarding documents. So anyone can take a look at that. You can go next slide. So this is just a little tidbit of kind of an example of how we like to partner with vendors and what we expect from them and what is expected from us too. We always like, part of the reason for us to help with distribution and for is we want to free up the vendor's time to go out and sell the product, because no one's going to sell it better than the producers. And so this is just one of the things that we think is really important is demos and promos in chain grocery stores are huge to keep velocities moving. We always say too that once you get accepted into a chain grocery store like Sprouts, being on the shelf is just the first step. It's not the final step. It's really the first step. And then there's a lot of support that needs to happen after that to keep it moving and to stay on the shelf and not to get kicked off. So again, there's just some kind of points we like to really emphasize demos and promotions and making sure that those turns are still happening quickly. Go next slide. Cool. Yeah. So this is that's kind of it in a nutshell. And on the bottom there is instructions to get to that flow chart, and then also where our policies and procedures are linked to. So happy to take any questions.
Does anybody have any questions? I have a question.
Yeah.
Sam, how do you handle contracting with somebody that may want to come into local food distribution?
Contracting, how do you mean, like exclusive distribution rights, or are you?
Well, that would be one, but I'm thinking like a time frame of holding that price. Is that possible, or how does that work?
Yeah, well, so generally with prices and price changes within the chain grocery stores, it kind of depends on which one we're in, but there's changes have a certain amount of time that before they can happen. So there's some language in our policies about how long, if we get you into a grocery store, how long you need to stay with us, and kind of our notification if you are going to change distribution. We don't have any pricing contracts per se, but Sprouts and Sprouts, Whole Foods, and Vitamin Cottage, it's a minimum of 30 days before price can change, and then Safeway is actually 90. So we have some language in our policies about kind of a minimum time before price can be changed, and the notice that the vendor needs to give to us.
No, thank you for that.
I have a quick question, Barb. Sam, you mentioned distribution to liquor stores. You guys don't distribute alcohol beverages, do you?
We don't. No, we've looked into it, but we don't. We do some CBD beverages right now, but because of the founder's husband has a business with a liquor license, so we basically can't as long as they stay together. So we did look into it though, because it's an interesting obviously segment distribution.
Oh yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Are there any foods that you don't handle?
Yeah. Ice cream is really a challenge. It requires kind of another level of freezer capability. Our trucks are refrigerated, all of them are, but keeping ice cream solid in July in Colorado is very tricky, and so it's just not one of the things that we've tackled yet. But other than that, we'll do meat, and I think we aren't licensed to do fish. I think that's a little tricky, but yeah, meat, grains, produce, yeah, we can handle all of it.
That's great. Thank you for all of that information.
Yeah.
Do we have any other questions for Sam? Excellent. Well, thank you so much. That was great.
No
well, let's move on to Sprouts, and I'll leave it to you gentlemen to tell me how you'd like to proceed.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. So I guess I'll kick it off, and then we've got a couple of slides that Michael was kind enough to put together for everybody in regards to connecting with the larger retailer. I guess what I'll touch on today is just mainly how we got here. And so I've been with Sprouts Farmers Market, as mentioned, for the last 17 years. Basically, my entire working career has been with Sprouts Farmers Market. Started in Southern California, and then got the opportunity to transition out to Colorado during a acquisition of stores with Sunflower Farmers Market back in the early 2000s, 2013, I believe it was. Anyhow, when we first opened up stores out here, we did not have distribution. We didn't have a distribution center in Colorado, so all of our products flowed from the Arizona distribution center to Colorado. It was a 2-day ride. It was X amount of miles on the road for products. So as you can imagine, products that got to Colorado were slightly aged. Quality wasn't as good as we wanted it to be. Fast forward to a couple of years back, we opened up our own distribution center in Aurora, and that gave us the opportunity to be a little bit more nimble in regards to getting next day deliveries, et cetera. But as we opened up distribution centers, the large push from coast to coast and everywhere in between is becoming as regionally and locally relevant as possible in each market. When I think about when I first got to Colorado, we had used, most of you would know this company, Fresh Pack was who supplied us in local season, carried about 20, 25 SKUs. So Michael and I, when we first opened up the distribution center, were tasked with connecting with as many local growers as possible, getting our SKU count up by about 4 times that amount. So they wanted at least 100 items locally carried throughout the season. And Michael and I were able to take that a little bit further. And we got to 125 items locally our first season. And then we went from 0 year-round programs to 4. So that's very helpful for Colorado agriculture. And anyhow, that's kind of how we got here. If you want to get to the slides, Barb, Michael, I'll let you take care of that.
Yeah, I just sent you our slides, Barb. It won't let me share them. So
Okay. Yep. Hang on one. Okay, let me get those up. Can you see that? No. Is that better, Michael?
yeah, kind of. It's gone now.
Let me go back.
Hey, Barb, click on slideshow down below. Yeah, there you go.
Is it big enough?
Huh, there you go. Now it shows.
Very nice. Yeah, this is just kind of a really more high view with some details. Thomas and I are both involved in produce, so that's mostly what we're kind of speaking to in our slides. Just kind of general ideas of what kind of helps us find Colorado growers or Colorado products, and kind of the general flow of connecting with us and figuring out if your products align with our needs and so on and so forth. So just kind of to start, like Thomas had mentioned, we took the local produce program from next to nothing, and over the course of a couple of years, brought the SKU count of local produce up from 10 or 20 to over 140 now, local produce items. And what really helped us initially, and then not being so well connected to anyone, was just using social media, using Google, using LinkedIn to try and find local growers, using the Department of Agriculture's website, Colorado Fruit and Vegetable Grower Association's website. So I just would really encourage, whether you're a produce grower in Colorado or some kind of food distributor or beverage, really making yourself as well known as you can, so that you're easier to find in the event that anyone at Sprouts is looking for a particular local product. It's a lot easier to find you if you have active social media pages, LinkedIn, nice website, kind of so on and so forth. It's easier to find you that way. When we initially find someone or connect with someone, we noticed over the last couple of years it can be challenging at first to kind of gather intel, gather data from local produce growers in particular. So we would encourage all of them to have some kind of detailed, well-organized Excel spreadsheet, some kind of document that really lays out products, the availability, obviously as it pertains to the local growing season, or if it's year round, start and end dates for the product season, as well as pricing. We have the capability of picking up at a lot of farms or warehouses, but it's good to sort of present as much information, as much data as possible at the start. That way there isn't a lot of like back and forth and kind of getting lost in the communication of the details. Another really important part of working with us is communicating how much product you have, how much can you supply to us a week or a month, a quarter, for your season. Will we be able to rely on just you for such a product, or will we have to have other people, other growers potentially in the mix in order to take care of our customers, as well as transportation. Are you able to deliver the product, or does it need to be picked up? In the initial communications, having these kinds of details for us really streamlines the process in determining whether or not we can work with you or how well we can work with you. Really.
I would say, Mike, if I can jump in real quick, just on one of the points that you touched on in regards to volumes. I think, for the most part, all of us know who, the larger growers are, some of the mainstay items like peaches and melons and corn, those type of things. But I think if you're trying to connect with smaller growers, there's probably some hesitancy. So I would just say to folks that potentially grow in smaller volumes to, don't be hesitant to reach out to larger retailers that are interested in doing business locally. A lot of companies like to do in and out spot buys, weekend deals, et cetera, and that may help quite a bit, help move some of that inventory off of your farm, or maybe all of your inventory if you're a smaller grower, right? So I think the message here is just, don't be hesitant to reach out to larger retailers, because chances are they will want to work with you.
Great point. And then kind of in line with this, it's kind of common sense, but just noticed in dealing with some growers, it can be challenging, with as far as communication. So really highlighting that communication is key. Obviously, emails help with paper trail and documentation, and we deal with a few dozen different local growers. And it helps us keep track and keep things organized when there's some kind of documentation in the process of communicating. Obviously, on the phone, we love talking to local growers. It's more personable, and getting to have great conversations and what their farm does and who their family is and how long they've been in Colorado, and if it's a generational farming operation. And then obviously too, in-person meetings. Thomas and I really love going and visiting farms and seeing what all it takes to bring Colorado produce to life in our state. Obviously the weather, the growing region is really challenging with the weather changes. So being able to go to the farm and seeing all the hard work that it takes to bring products eventually onto our shelves really helps us, and it helps us tell the story to our stores, to our leadership of all the things that Colorado growers and even manufacturers go through to make things happen and get products on our shelves. What's the next? I can't see the next bullet point down there. Oh yeah, and kind of to what Thomas was saying earlier. Don't ever hesitate if you have an abundance of product and need to push it out, and we're able to promote it or get a hot buy, a hot deal on it, a spot buy on it. That's we really look for those opportunities to showcase products, even if in the event that it's just you're long on them and you need help moving more product, as well as store visits and demos, sampling events. Those really help us sort of drive sales, getting your products in front of customers, connecting with us to coordinate some kind of cool event or sampling demo. It can really help, obviously. And then next slide. Yeah, we're working with us. We're pretty much like every other major retailer or food service outlet or distributor. You have to have certifications. Typically, you have to be GAP certified. If you're selling us organic produce, organic products, you obviously have to be USDA organic certified. We've worked with some growers in the past that had a Colorado state organic certification, but we weren't able to sell it as organic because it wasn't USDA certified organic. So in the initial talkings with us, we're able to kind of flesh that out of what you need. We have an insurance team that requires a certain amount of insurance for your company in the event something unfortunate happens. But if you're a smaller grower or you're a smaller manufacturer, if your season is shorter and there's only so many dollars involved, there's more flexibility with the insurance requirements, not so much with the food safety certifications, but with the insurance in particular, there's more flexibility depending on how much product you're going to be selling, how long you're going to be selling it, how many sales dollars or purchase dollars are involved. On onboarding with us, just being transparent, it can be a lengthy process, but it is relatively well organized. We have a great team in place that helps you get all of the information that you need and upload it through our Workday portal to get set up and doing business with us. They're very responsive and helpful in figuring things out and getting set up with us. Processing of purchase orders and invoicing. We just recently moved away from iTrade system to SPS, and then we use Workday for invoicing. So both of those systems are required to do business with us. And then also a big part of working with us is when local produce and local products in particular. When we initially speak with you, when we initially see if it's going to work, we send you a marketing intake form. It's basically an opportunity for you to tell your story, what goes into your farm or your products. Is there any family history? How long has it been in Colorado? Any of the unique features, location, any of that. It really gives you an opportunity to sell your product. And then we take that information and we use it in creating signage. We use it in creating digital profile available on our website that our grower or that our customers are able to visit and read in to your company, into your farm. So it's really, really kind of like detailed process, but it helps us convey to our customers, the value of what you're doing and the products you carry. We also require high resolution images. We like to show off who we're working with, especially if it's a family farm. We love giving that sort of like ambiance or a sense when you're shopping in our stores that we're dealing with local growers, and they're our customers, and buying their fresh produce are supporting a local farm and keeping Colorado dollars in Colorado. Is there anything you want to add to that, Tomas?
No, I mean, when you think about Colorado season, right, we've got a pretty short window to make things happen. So what Michael was kind of touching on there in regards to storytelling and all that work that we do with marketing, et cetera, in-store sampling, signage, all the things that we're trying to do to sell more of your products. These are all good things. And it is to say that, you're trying to make as much happen in as little bit of time as there is, right? So, no, good job, Mike.
All we have to say.
No, really excellent. Nicely done on how to do this. Does anybody have any questions for Michael or Tom? I just had a few. I always learn so much from you guys. When you say, just for our members, when you say it's a lengthy process for onboarding, can you give us a time frame? Like, what should somebody expect?
I would say if you have, most of your, I guess, documentation and things in order, kind of at the start, I would say it could take 3 to 4 weeks. If you don't, it could take longer than that. We've experienced with some growers where there's just a lot of back and forth, and people get busy, especially on our like administrative team. The more back and forth there is, and the more questions, the more time transpires, and the grower, the producer, figuring that out, and then they send it to our administration team, then in charge of setting or onboarding growers, and they could be in the middle of dealing with several others in that moment of receiving that information. So it could be 3 to 4 weeks, or it could be 6 or 8 weeks if there's more back and forth and more questions that have to be answered.
No, that's great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Would a supplier or a producer have to supply all of your stores, or would you be open to somebody that could do maybe regional in Colorado, for example, or how would you handle that? Maybe somebody can't supply all of them, but could do a few.
Yeah, we our DC located in Aurora, Colorado. It distributes to New Mexico stores, Utah stores, and Colorado stores. We're flexible in working with growers and their volumes. Like Thomas was saying, where if you only have a limited amount, maybe we can feature it in only the Colorado stores, or maybe just a certain district of Colorado stores. Or if you have product and we need to do it as just kind of like a special, like a weekend only offering. So yeah, there is a lot of flexibility with that.
Well, that's great. And is there a place that a Colorado Proud member could go on your website? I know you've provided your contact information as well as Thomas's, but that might provide them some basic information before they even contact you about, packaging that's required. Say they want to supply the store with something that you would need packaged. Could they go somewhere and find that before maybe contacting you, so they could see, hey, would I even be able to do this?
As far as I know, it would be best to contact us, and we could find the person. If it's non-produce related, we could find the person that could answer their question pretty much about anything. I mean, other than our general SROUTS.com website that's mainly used for shopping. Yeah, it doesn't give those kinds of details, unfortunately.
I was just curious. I think sometimes people may, just be curious. Hey, I have this product. How do you want it packaged? For your shelf. But no,
Yeah.
that helps a lot. Really excellent outline. Any other questions for Michael and Tom?
I have one. You mentioned your distribution center. Is that exclusively produce, or are you guys moving around, CPGs with that distribution center too?
Yeah, it's everything. Yeah, dried goods, dairy. Yeah, it's everything that's pretty much sold to our stores that you find in stores goes through that DC. It isn't just
Gotcha.
produce.
Okay. Do you guys work with any distributors doing cross-dock over there, or do you just to get access to those other states? Just curious.
We have other distribution centers in California, Arizona, Texas, and it's all kind of broken apart by region. Like the Glendale, Arizona, DC distributes also to certain parts of New Mexico along with us. So my cross-dock opportunities. Not too familiar with that. I can't say that I really have heard or seen anyone doing that through our DC that would go to another area of the country outside of our Utah, New Mexico, and Colorado region.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Excellent. Well, great. Thank you, guys. That was fantastic. Tadd,
Thank you.
I will go ahead. Do you want me to pull up your slides?
Yeah, that would be great.
Is that okay?
That is perfect.
Great.
So what I'm going to talk about in the next few slides is really do you know, and the better you know these steps and some of these items amongst another 1,000, the better off you're going to perform. And the first thing to always remember, and I'm speaking from experience, from being a buyer, from being a category manager, and really to being a broker, you think some of the challenges are trying to get a hold of those guys. There's like a gatekeeper that you don't get return phone calls. You wonder, you get frustrated. Distribution, you hit fulcrum points. How do you take it to the next step? Where you do, how do you get packaging? How do you move into a co-packer? How do you really go from a farmer's market into a final finished product? And just so you know, that's the easy part of your journey that you're embarking on, and it's fun, it's challenging. At times it'll feel like it's impossible, but everything's possible. And at the end of the day, it's a simple business. Every retailer is there to make you successful. And we're really just selling beans. We're just trying to get that can of beans off the shelf and into your basket. But getting on the shelf is the easy part. Getting in that customer's basket is the challenge, and especially multiple times. So next slide. What matters most, this is your story to tell. Remember, you're the expert. You know your brand, you know your product, you know the reason for being better than anybody else. So never forget that in any meeting that you do, any engagement that you have with a customer. Not only are they buying a great product, they're buying you, and they're buying the brand. They're buying what you want to be and what you're trying to communicate. And the better you can communicate that story, and this is something that you fine-tune from numerous times, whether it's from your brand, from your initial packaging design, from your initial thought process. Always remember, we live now in a 280 character. It used to be 140 characters, but Twitter was able to give us another 140. So people's attention spans are a little longer. You'll be able to tell that story, but you really need to tell it concise and in a detail that somebody gets excited about you, and you want them just as excited as you are. And next slide. It's important, besides knowing you, is know your customer. And a question I see a lot of people miss is, does a customer need your product, or do they even want your product, to be honest with you? And if you can't answer that question, it's time you go back to that original part of, do you know your story? Understand your demographics, understanding who, and psychographics, who are you trying to target? Used to be traditionally, you would target, that mom with 2 kids going into a grocery store. But there's so many different things and so many different ways to engage, whether it's a millennial, a Gen Xer, a boomer, a Gen Zer. They all interact with your product differently. They all engage with your product differently, and they all listen to you differently. You want to know what motivates that customer. You want to know what motivates that customer to shop and to buy. The thing that you always remember is the average grocery store has 10 departments in their stores. Average customer shops 3 departments, and your average decision making for that customer is, 7 seconds at the shelf. And that's tried and true. So if you're trying to sell a kombucha, and they may not even see your product, or if you're trying to sell a packaged product, they may not be down that bake aisle or that snack aisle or the salsa aisle in order to even find your product. So how do you engage with them, whether it's sampling, whether it's your social media? How are you going to motivate that customer? And ultimately, you're trying to build raving fans. You're trying to build that fan will become your biggest promoter. And these are all fulcrum points that you move along that are critical steps within the process. But know that if you build that raving fan, pretty soon that buyer's phone call is easier. Pretty soon that distributor's phone call is easier. Pretty soon you hit those minimum points that Sam talked about in order to build distribution. You're just trying to build that volume in order to hit the next step. And next slide. In addition to knowing your story and who your customer is, you got to know your category. You got to know the key players within that category. You need to know the competitive environment of that category. You need to know the category volume and the trajectory that category is going. There are categories that grow huge. For example, a few years ago was cold pressed juice. It started from nothing. I was part of building, the number one brand within that category. All of a sudden, every local region in the country has a cold pressed juice. And now the category's peaked. It's starting on the decline a bit. And there's only a few key players that are left. And those are the ones that win. Important thing is to hit that trajectory at the beginning point. A little hard to come out with a cool cold pressed juice now, as the category has matured and consolidated. There's other categories that, it's amazing what an Oprah favorite things, or a Dr. Oz can comment on a category and an item, and how that just blows up that category. Being able to be in there ahead of time is the way to go. And it's really just back to that age-old story. You can build the best buggy whip, but if they're no longer needed, it doesn't matter. Know your purchase cycle. How often is your category shopped? If you think about it, these multiple consumable categories, like a kombucha, like a juice, like a snack, they're purchased multiple times a month, multiple times a week. Other categories, think about your pantry. You may buy something, or actually open up your refrigerator and look at how many bottles of barbecue sauce that have gone out of date, because you keep seeing the newest, best flavor, and the one bottle gets stuck to the back. And if you're in a category and you're anticipating being that multi-millionaire because you're on the shelf, customers not buying it often, it doesn't work. And there's ways to do that. And there's all of this information is, you can buy it, you can consult, you can even just go stand in a grocery store and watch someone, how many times they go down that aisle, and count how many times they shop, and count how many times they look at salsa, for example, if you're trying to launch that, or chocolate bar, and see where that customer leads. And it's really just a pitch counter. Count how many times they're there, and you can identify what that cycle may look like, and ask your friends and family. I encourage every small producer to take their item and give it to all your neighbors, and tell them that anytime that you want something else, let me know and I'll give you another jar. And if you realize they're not coming back for a month, that's probably your purchase cycle, because they're coming up for free. Got to know your category review schedule. This is one of the challenges that you hit, especially as the retailers get bigger and bigger. They hit these category review schedules, and it's a science. And if you hit that schedule, you get one chance to make a first impression. And if you introduce your item after that category review schedule, they've forgotten about you, and they're not going to remember you, and you're going to have a harder time introducing yourself the next time. So all the retailers publish category review schedules. Some have open reviews. Some are really looking for that small producer. Some are you're trying to build. You've hit those fulcrum points where you've gone from farmers market to individual localized stores, into a small retailer, into a regional retailer, into a national retailer. So those review schedules become like gold to you, and they should be your standard of when and where you present. And know that you're not presenting produce. Typically right now those decisions have already been made. You're not promoting the snack category in May. You're presenting that in November, when people aren't necessarily buying snacks, but you're trying to hit the summer selling season. So those items are placed in the stores in April to be ready for May and June and July, for those big summer months when you're looking at salty snacks. Next slide. Know your retail partner. You got to know who their customer is. If you're launching a conventional item and you're trying to get into Whole Foods or Sprouts or natural grocers, and you get all kinds of preservatives, you're probably not going to get in there. Know who natural grocers is. That Whole Foods is their standards. Natural grocers kind of takes it up another notch. Know what your label says, and while your label may be okay to say natural ingredients for most retailers, natural grocers, they're going to want to see that all listed. Or if you've got a dairy in there, it's got to be organic dairy. You got to meet their standards. So if you don't meet their standards, you're wasting your time and your excitement and your dreams in order to get to natural grocers. Understand what their requirements are, not only in ingredients, but costs and promotions, whether they are looking for a free fill, whether they're looking for a slotting allowance, whether they're looking for a demo schedule, or whether they're looking for you to purchase another marketing vehicle just to get in there. Then you need to know their distribution channels. All of these are meant to build fulcrum points that at each step of the way, you're going to grow from a farmer's market to a small distributor, that if you're going to get into a national player and you're going to start looking at KeHE or Unify, two of the larger retailers that Sprouts works with, that Whole Foods works with, that Natural Grocers works with, and then know that there's multiple different warehouses and distribution centers in there. Retailers have become more sophisticated as a necessity, as online shoppers become so popular, the popularity of it. They're going to require you to be, you could be in one or two markets or just a couple stores. They're really looking to simplify and grow bigger and bigger, as is, an Amazon bought Whole Foods. My world completely changed, and that's where you start following your dream. And so, the next slide. And ultimately know your plan. Your plan is yours, and know that the decision that you're making today should have been made 3 or 4 steps ago. And I say that because it's a chess game, and you're trying to decide, do you want to go from that farmer's market into just a small distribution channel, like just hitting some coffee shops and some delis and snack, which is certainly a viable alternative. But maybe it's that you want to become a regional or even a national player. And I've in my past career, I've grown Noosa when Coel just brought us a mason jar with yogurt in it, to a national player bought by a CPG company. Same with Justin's nut butter. Justin, when I originally found him, he was wanting to sell peanut butter packets at REI of all things, looking for that quick protein hit. Fast forward to multi-million-dollar transaction with ConAgra, and they actually became a convection candy company more so than a peanut butter company. So it's looking ahead and understanding those steps. And when you hit that, know what your marketing plan is going to be up front. Know that most retailers are going to require a minimum of 4 marketing events a year, meaning you're going to offer some sort of a discount or allowance. But it's back to your plan and be strategic about that. Obviously know that if you're going to play in the salty snack category, everybody wants to promote in the salty snack categories. Is that where you want to compete? Do you want to compete if you're selling a salty snack? Do you want to compete against Kettle and Boulder Canyon and those times that are going to buy that national footprint and that national ad and take it deeper than you? Or are you better to hit some of those more off-cycle, not thought about key distribution, like Mother's Day and a barbecues that happen, and during Mother's Day, maybe that's when you want to run your promotion, or in the fall in Colorado, maybe it's camping season. But really, it's lay out that marketing plan, know what your launch schedule looks like, and this is critical when you're looking, especially as you go to expand to a regional chain, whether it's natural grocers, Sprouts, Whole Foods. Know what that launch schedule looks like, meaning know when your product needs to hit their distribution center, know when it's going to hit their stores, and ultimately when it hits their shelves. Some of the retailers are much better than others. Some of the retailers, your product sits in the back room for a month. And if you've got a dated product, that's a real challenge. So you better know how to work with somebody. Future ideation, while you may have your plan of attack and want to be the best salsa or even the best chip, and I use Siete chips as an example that we worked from them at the beginning. They were doing a cost of a tortilla chip, first one in the market, but they had plans to grow that company, not from a chip salty snack company, but to actually an ethnic based food product across multiple categories. And so while it may seem 5 years away, that's great. But know that's always there. And that's why I say your decisions that you're making today were actually made 3 or 4 months ago. Your growth plans is critical. And again, as you hit these fulcrum points and understand that you've taken an item from farmer's market into a small chain, that you're going to hit volume points, you're going to hit forecasting. So you're going to have to know whether you can quit making it yourself in a commercial kitchen. Do you need a co-packer? Know that where you want to play. It's amazing how many people I work with that really are a Colorado company, but Wegmans found you, and all of a sudden you're trying to get distribution to the East Coast, and you don't understand it. Don't know how to get there, and your company that was successful implodes because of some decisions that you make. The next slide, which is again, know your numbers. It's expensive. And that fees, trade spend, margin, all of that can be insurmountable. So when you look at a retailer, and like Sam's already shared with you, most retailers are looking at a 40% margin on their end, and the distributors taking their margin. Major distributors like Unify know what their fees are going to look like and what that contract is you sign. Unify is not going to pay you until you sell your item after 2 purchase orders completely through before they pay you. And know that they're going to have a catalog price on your item that when you go to launch that, Whole Foods, natural grocers are all going to require a free fill. If your case price is $10 and their catalog price is $12, they're charging you $12. So you're paying them an additional $2 for every case that they sell for you. So sometimes that first check, you actually owe them money instead, depending on how successful and how far you've launched. So cash flow is king, which, don't launch without having the ability to pay that. It's really hard to build a couple pallets of product that you send into distribution and you're not getting paid for it. You need to have that capital in order to build that third pallet, and people miss that. And again, that's where those major success stories can be tripped up. So the better you know those numbers, know what your trade spend, know that when that retailer is trying to hit that 40% margin, when you're on deal, you need to help them hit that same margin. So build your margin into it as you look at building that 20%, or the reason for being for the distributor and the reason for you working, that margin for you is a lot bigger than you think it is. you're really looking at 80% because you're trying to solve all these other problems. And I even talked about at the point in time that you decide to buy a broker and add another 5% brokerage fees into that. So everybody wants your money. And ultimately, what you're really trying to do is just engage with that customer, get your product that you're passionate about into your basket, but know all along the way, people want a little piece of that pie. So with that, any questions?
Well, that was great. I don't see any hands. Well, that's interesting what you say about know your numbers. It's a little scary to think about everything that gets stacked in there, isn't it? That was a good review.
Hey, Tadd, are you still doing brokerage, or I saw that you have a coffee shop, but are you still taking on clients, or?
So no, I'm no longer in the brokerage world. I left that when Amazon took Whole Foods and decided I built a national sales team with 280 people. We cut it in half because Amazon changed. We were a very efficient company to take care of an inefficient company. Amazon changed all of that, and it became fee-based. And so as I was looking to downsize my company, I decided that I should be one of the ones that went. And so I decided really, I reflected, best time in my career was really being a checker and where you just engage with customers every day. So that's what I wanted to do. Had a supportive wife and allowed me to go build that dream. Really wanted to be a coffee roaster and build a small brand and start back over and be at a farmer's market, and hopefully somebody would find me and build it. But the numbers never worked. The financials didn't work. So I needed to build a hospitality company. So we launched the coffee shop right in the middle of COVID. We were under construction when that happened. So that slowed everything up. We've got a new wine bar concept that we're getting ready to launch, and starting to roast all of our coffee. So I still consult on the side. We still launch with a lot of small brands. We've launched some items in the coffee shop with some folks. So it's been kind of fun. Those decisions of when to get a UPC, and if you purchase the wrong type of UPC, you've already eliminated yourself from trying to get into any place else. So, and you're not going to get into Kroger without a K1 UPC. So those decision points are critical, and that's where you need. There are lots of people who want to help you solve it. And, if you look at especially in the natural organic channel, multiple places to seek information. Naturally, Boulder's another great source. Work with other entrepreneurs. But yeah, long story that I'm not a broker any longer, but the passion's still there.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, if you're consulting still, I always have brands reaching out for help, and we mainly do distribution. It's always good to have contacts to share if you're willing.
Absolutely. And I usually, sometimes my consultants, they end up being a dream killer, but I'd rather people know up front what they're getting themselves into, and just know the journey. And like I say, I've been part of building some really cool, amazing brands over the course of my career.
That sounds like it. Thanks.
That was kind of one of my questions, was how do producers find the review schedules? Is it just by contacting each retailer, Tadd, or like?
Yeah, as you start out, you're going to, when you're transitioning from the small individual retailer like a Clark's Market or like Local Vor, and you're ready to go into somebody else, you can call any retailer. You'd be amazed if you stop in the store. Sometimes it was hard to find me. It was hard to find me as a category manager, as a buyer. But all the stores know who you are, and you ask one of them, they'll find you. They'll introduce you, and it's amazing. I have had people find me sitting in the parking lot stalking me to try and catch me when I walk in the door, and I actually made some decisions that way. A lot of times you're just inundated with so much information. you didn't take this time to stop and listen. And that was my role, is to listen to the customers. I had the best job as a buyer and category manager ever, because I never made the decision. The customer made it. They'd tell me if I brought the right one in, and they would tell me if I discontinued it too soon. And then if you build those raving fans, they'll tell you better put it back on the shelf.
That's, I bet they do. I'm one of those. If I like something, I'll go to the store and ask for it. In your opinion, with your expert advice, what are some real keys in getting that shopper to put the product in their cart in that 7 seconds that you're saying they kind of are perusing?
Yeah. So first and foremost is that story beforehand, utilizing social media, understanding what that is, getting in and then when you do get into retail, the easiest way to get into a cart is through a sampling program. And most of these small retailers will offer a sampling program. Every one of these guys, Justin built his store customer by his story, customer by customer, store by store, division by division, in order to get that done. It's hard pick and shovel work, but it's doable. And then it's really your packaging. Remember, the grocery industry is probably the most scientific retailer that's out there. I mean, there's a reason why every box is the size that it is, and being unique isn't always best. You can help make the decision for the retailer long before you ever get there, meaning you put a package that's too big for the market, really hard to justify it. Or if you know that most grocery shelves are in 48-inch increments and frozen shelves are 20-inch increments, and if you launch 5 items in a frozen category and you lay them out together and it's 22 inches, you've already made the decision for the retailer that they can't bring one of your items in. And retail buyers are crazy. They're crazy people, and I'm one of them. Sometimes you may have your favorite item and they don't pick it, and your best one, because they've got 6 other blueberry yogurts and they don't want that. With that said, you can be a disruptor. If you look at Coel, and when she launched Noosa, her goal was to be the first Australian yogurt in the country, and she brought that over. She didn't create it. She brought it over she used to live in Australia. She brought that there, but they sold yogurt in those flat tubs. Grocery World didn't sell it. They sold it in cups. So we worked hard with her, and it took a long time to build out that company, because not only did I help start her at Whole Foods, I ended up brokering her in the end when I was and took her nationally. Was you had to convince retailers to give up that extra space, that you were asking them to discontinue an extra item just so that they could fit your 4 items on. So it was no longer a 1-for-1 swap on items. You were asking them to discontinue more than they wanted to do. But again, it's a $100 million company today, fastest growing yogurt, that still exists.
Wow. Well, excellent. For some final thoughts, Michael and Thomas, do you have any final thoughts and advice for our Colorado Proud members on connecting with a retailer, or things that they should consider other than what we've talked about?
No, I would just say, going back to some of the slides and some of the things that we said earlier, Sprouts, I can speak to Sprouts specifically. I see it in the market as well, that a lot of these, smaller and larger retailers are very interested in doing business with you all. And it's, don't be hesitant to reach out if you are one of those growers that's not currently connected. No, a lot of good things from each of the speakers today. So I appreciate all of that. Tadd was definitely speaking my language, all the things I've known and heard over the years. So no, great, and glad to be a part of it. Thank you for inviting us on. We certainly appreciate it.
Well, thank you guys. Excellent. Michael, anything to add?
Yeah, just to follow up. Yeah, just really thankful for the opportunity to connect with all of you and hear from Tadd and Sam, and really appreciate all that you're doing, Barb, to connect us with people and give us this opportunity to address these sort of ideas, and really thankful.
Well, thank you for that. You guys have done a great job. Sam, any last words for our Colorado Proud members?
Yeah, no, thank you, Barb. I think just to kind of echo what Tadd said, and I touched on too, is having that plan and having the structure in place and being ready and knowing what to expect for the next steps. And then obviously, like the sprouts, like Michael and Thomas said too, don't hesitate. If you think you're too small, you know, you may not be, and there's ways to grow, you know, in a healthy way and get great products and continue to get great products to the market in Colorado, because we have an amazing number of producers here and growers and processors. So yeah, don't hesitate.
Excellent. Thank you. And Tadd, do you have any final words of advice for our Colorado Proud members?
Yeah, first and foremost, don't give up. It's a fun journey. And it's your dream, it's your passion, and you can follow it. And there are tons of support out there, and there are tons of people to do it. Just look at this call. There's people who have taken time out of their busy day and multiple ways just to try and help you. And pick up the phones. Don't be afraid to ask, and you know, just really don't give up. And you'll win in the end.
Well, great advice from all of you. And thank you again. Wow, great learning experience. And I'm sure our Colorado Proud members hopefully will be reaching out and you know, seeing how their businesses can grow with all the help from you guys. So thank you very much. And I wish you all a great day.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
See you, Tadd.